god, it was beautiful.
I literally now I want to watch Insecure. I've always kind of wanted to for a lot of reasons. And now I was watching and I was like, he's a love interest? I can watch that. I can do a little watching of that. I'm here for it. Hi, I'm Gabe.
And I'm Kat.
And we're the Ghouls Next Door. And we are ready for the revolution.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
The civil war that is inevitably going to happen. And what you're hearing is a very large... What are you going to do in nunchucks?
I don't know, I'm a fight, I learned how to do it.
No. Find a hammer or something for the revolution. That's what we're going to need. Because we are going to be talking about the First Purge. Cat. Really set on nunchucks.
I have 2 nunchucks.
That's good.
Nunchucks or nunchucks?
Nunchucks, I think. You know what? That's a good...
If I don't know how to say them, I think it's still fine that I own them.
Nunchucks. Yeah, nunchucks.
Nunchucks, they're none of yours.
Yep. And
they're
it's
not for
none
you.
of your business.
I'm going to hit you in the face with them. It's not for you.
Yes. That's smart.
I genuinely don't know how they work.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, so
we'll figure it out. There's also scissors here, so
yeah.
we're going to do stabby stabs.
So we're talking today about the First Purge.
Mm-hmm.
And
not first as in...
the first one made. We're talking about the film titled The First Purge, which is about it's like a prequel. It's a prequel to the Purge series.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we were watching it, and it's modern day, right? And there's attacks, and it feels so real. It's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
And it's happening on the screen, and they're being attacked in their house. It felt like Attack the Block, but minus aliens, and replace it with actual white supremacists.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, we need weapons in our house in case it happens.
I'm gonna be really honest. I have never in my life felt like, hey, I should get a gun. But watching this film, I was like, oh my god, we need guns. Yeah. What are we doing? What do you mean? If someone comes, what?
What do you do?
Absolutely not. I'm not gonna be able to fight him with no nunchucks. Absolutely not.
And you know what's funny is so coming off of the Candyman film, right? Mm-hmm. Is that we have this Helen was going into this neighborhood and they're gangs are in there. We live in Philadelphia. We live in the city where people might be afraid and might think, I should have a gun to protect myself. But it literally never occurred to us because we're whatever, maybe a bat or something, right? You just in case there's theft or something, whatever. But very, not even then, right?
Yeah.
Just to be basic protecting yourself. But it literally took seeing a film where there's the government conspiracy, white supremacists entering your home, and there's nothing else that the world can do to protect you. That we were
because they have all the guns.
We should get a gun.
They have all the money for the guns. They have the budgets. They have the financial backing to out-militarize us. I have now officially. I'm
they have the NRA, and that's what the founding fathers in this film, the party, the election party, were brought into power by the NRA. Mm-hmm. By this idea of the Second Amendment that's supposed to protect the true Americans, right? And so, I think it's really funny that, we live in a place that I feel other people would be you should have a gun to protect yourself. We're no. And then we were oh, but white people. And
we need guns to get rid of the racist people who are coming for our lives.
Yeah. So that was entertaining to me.
It was very... It hit in such a visceral way where it's just I feel it was so scary because it was 100% that societal horror. It was this is what's happening outside right now. I was like yelling at Mike. We had to watch it on a computer screen because I've decided the world has intentionally made this film very hard to find. And rated it not well. Like, it's like at 55% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, it had like 3 stars.
Rotten Tomatoes is racist to me now. I just like, there's no, it was a fantastic, it was a fantastic film. It was saying exactly what life was, but because we were still, it was like made back in 2018 where we were still calling out people for literally using their rights to stand up for things that they believed in, and everyone should believe in. We were still in that phase where it's not the time, don't do it that way, where I'm convinced it has been intentionally taken off public access because it's literally just saying exactly what's happening right now.
Honestly, I'm ready to just call Shudder and be like, one, they need to flesh out their horror noir section, because right now it's just a handful of blaxploitation films, the horror noir documentary, 2 indie films, one is a short film, one is a full-length one, and like 1 other film, right? And it's like, how are we going to have this right now? And you have a section called horror noir, and there's like 10 films in there.
Yeah, there's so many other films that need to be in there.
Like, get in touch with us, Shudder, because we have some recommendations for you.
Yeah.
And if it's not on Netflix, it's not on Hulu, like, you have an opportunity.
I had to pay $15.
Yes. And it was
to watch this on my computer screen, not even on a TV.
Yeah.
And I don't regret it.
Yeah.
It was worth it.
So, for people who are wondering what we're talking about, it is the First Purge, and I will tell you what IMDb says it is.
Say your words.
America's third political party, the new founding fathers of America, Tea Party, comes to power and conducts an experiment. No laws for 12 hours on Staten Island. No one has to stay on the island, but $5,000 is given to anyone who does, and it's directed by Gerard McMurray, who is a black man.
Yeah.
So right there, we know it's getting done, right?
Yeah.
Nothing about us without us, and he is very deliberate about everything in this film. And like,
there was no subtlety.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, there's this, like, so we found some articles about it, but there's one from The Verge, and I think this one really, like, kind of explains how I feel about a lot of media that, like, the ones that we have a problem with are media that either, like, just dips a toe into their message or, you know, skirts around it in certain ways. And in ways that I feel like we've even done, right? Like,
we're guilty of it too. Yeah, we're worried we're going to offend somebody, or we're worried. Well, it's like, yes, difference between worried about offending somebody and just being offensive.
Yeah.
But like, we're very worried about, because we are a public figure, and making sure that we're intentionally saying the things that we believe in and that we want to be out there.
Yeah.
So we have hesitated in the past.
Or even like kind of trying to, like, struggling with this idea of like us being our edutainment podcast, right? Like, we want to be educational, but we also want to be entertaining. And so there are times when we've encountered really dark subjects, because that's just what happens when you're in horror, right? Where we have like not intended to get as deep or dark as we did, or like going into it, we had to like prep ourselves for it. Like when we did the population control, I don't think we knew that's where we would end up.
Oh yeah, a lot of topics it ends up like that, where we'll look into it and we'll be like, all right, this is gonna be a fun time, we're gonna talk about this. It's like, I bet you there's some crazy conspiracies, and then we're like,
awful.
Oh god, the world.
Yeah, like, why don't we know? Why don't we know?
Where were we?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think, like, you know, with, like, even just thinking back to the time travel episode, right? Like, I struggled, like, even pitching, I was like, you know, we're doing time travel, it's fun, we've been doing all these wacky things. And I was like, let's do About Time, let's do this. And then I was like, let's do See You Yesterday. And I was like, when we do that film, it's gonna get intense, it's gonna get racial, it's gonna be about problems. And so it was like, even then I was hesitant to be like, should we do that? Are people gonna be upset because we're like talking about something like that? And then it was like, no. And then like, you know, researching it, being like, no, like, this needs to get said. And not even knowing that the world would blow up as the way that it did, like 2 weeks later, like having no idea that, you know, we were one of a million, right? That were feeling that same way. And so I feel like this film, like it's such a breath of fresh air, because all the other films kind of like dabbled and dipped a toe into the political and situational things, right? And then this one is like, no, we're gonna confront it, we're gonna be purposeful. It's just like Jordan Peele and his social horror films, where it's just like, I'm gonna spoon feed you. Like, we're gonna put it right. You can't argue.
Avoid it.
Yeah, you cannot argue that this is not what it's about. Like, there's no way for you to be like, it's this, right? And so there's an article on Verge.com that talks about it. So it says, 2013 film The Purge, writer-director James DeMonaco says, if it sparks any kind of discourse about violence in society, I think that's a good thing. If people just enjoy it, great. But if they want to talk about violence, guns in our society, that's great too. That kind of half commitment to the film's political elements defined the series until now. The Purge and its sequels, The Purge Anarchy in 2014 and The Purge Election Year in 2016, both written and directed by DeMonaco, all tiptoed up the line of delivering a loud, clear political message, but both films retreated before their subtext became explicit. The first Purge ends with the none too subtle suggestion that the only way to prevent a racist, classist, authoritarian dystopia from coming to pass is by taking to the streets, ideally with weapons in hand. The film turns One Night on Staten Island into a compression of the last few years of real-world American horror, a place where random violence seems like less of a threat than armed white supremacists and a government that sees them as allies in an ongoing culture war. Which, when you read that...
From 2018.
2018, right? And then you look at today's world and you read, like, articles about Philadelphia right now where we have groups of white supremacists and people who are vigilantes in Fishtown and in South Philadelphia who are combating Black Lives Matter protesters and being backed by the police. It's like, this is the real world that people have been living this whole time. And it took, like, being the fourth one in this series to tell us what it's about.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so real. The fact that it's been terrifying here. Like, we live... Oh, sorry. South Philly is in Philadelphia, where we live in Philadelphia. Yes. Not specifically in a district of Philadelphia.
We are moving, so...
Yeah, we are moving. Okay, so yeah, South Philly. Down the street from our house is where... the racists on parade with weapons who were drinking, who were like walking around hitting reporters. I was watching the stream of the one reporter who got beat up in Fishtown and then like having people literally tell people who are scared for their lives that the racists with bats are there to protect them.
Yeah.
Not there to protect us. Like, no, not for them. People who are calling in scared, it's not to protect them. No. It's to protect the white people. Yes. It's to protect the racists and the cops and the government and 2018 there.
And the Columbus statue.
Because we need the man who cuts off hands unless you bring enough gold.
Yes. The guy who was arrested in his own country.
Yeah.
They are the gravy seals or Wooder Isis. That's my favorite. That's my favorite.
Wooder Isis. Because of Wooder.
Yeah, Wooder
water. Water.
Exactly.
I get it.
You got it.
I'm picking it up.
Yeah. And so watching this, I was like, what else should we do? And I was like, I've always wanted to do the first Purge, and I hadn't seen it before.
I didn't expect it to be as real as it was.
Yeah. And so we put it on, and I would say, so for this film, cinematically, like, they definitely had a low budget. And so it's not something to, like, write home about cinematically. There are some, like, special effects or things that are very simple because that's not really what the point is. Like, I was watching, I was like, I feel like I could make this film in regards to, like, what equipment is used and, like, the limitations of just, like, where they are and what they're doing. But there's so much more to, like, when you look past that and you're just watching it to get the story and to hear what it's trying to tell you, it was so loud, right? Like, it was so in your face. And I was like, we were watching it, I was like, what? Every single, like, we were, like, essentially, like, live tweeting to each other. Yeah. I was like, this is, like, replaying what's happening outside right now with, like, the protests. I was like, in all the different ways. Like, it's so interesting that, like, these same themes and these same tactics are just replicated.
Yeah.
And so, like, what you have in this film is essentially, it's the beginning of the Purge. And if you're unfamiliar with the Purge films, it's this idea that for one night, all crime besides, like, I think you can't kill the president or something. Like, there's, like, 3 things that were listed, like, you can't do. Okay. But all crime is legal besides that.
Yeah, so get it all out of your system so that the rest of the year, you can just totally be cool.
Yeah. And so the first Purge, the original Purge number 1, is essentially just a home invasion film with Ethan Hawke and his family, and it's kind of a bit of a touch on classism a little bit in there, but it's really just like a new wave version of The Strangers. And it was great, and it's very simple, and I always love like when you have these really big ideas, like like the world is so vast and expansive because of this one idea, but you focus on this really minute piece of it. Like I thought that was really interesting. And I love how it like expanded, and we were like, well, if then
because it was necessary. I mean, I feel like after you watched the original one, you're just like, well, what
you
else? Had that whole world and that's all you did?
Yeah.
I need to know what's happening. And then they started to listen.
Well, it's like, in improv it says, if this, then what, right? Like if you create a world, if you propose this idea, you throw it up in the air, then it's your team's goal is to think, okay, if that's true in this world, what else would be true in this world? Like, this is a different world. We have to follow a new line of logic, right? And so that's what it does. And so this film, First Purge, is about the start of the purge. So in the other 3 films, we exist in the world that already is here. So it's similar to like most dystopian films where you're just there and you just have to like accept that it happened. Like you don't really get an understanding of how we got there. And like when we talked about Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, you get to see the progression, and that was terrifying.
It makes it because it just makes it seem less far off from where you are now.
Yeah.
You get to really see what went wrong, like what happened that allowed for this society to go forth. Yeah. And every time we have an experience like that, we realize, we're not that far off. We're very close. Yeah. We're just like a little skip step. Yeah. To Purge Land. Yeah. Yeah. And like so there's a lot in this film, and it's like there's literally like one line in horror noir that mentions the first Purge, and I think that's kind of sad. Only because I think like in horror noir they're covering things from previously, like this was 2018. It was new,
so it was still too new to have all this like information about. But there's so many things like from that documentary that are kind of expressed in this film that I think is super interesting, and things that felt so real. And so like one of them is like, so they choose Staten Island as the test, right? And it just makes you think of the numerous the enormous history of testing and using BIPOC as guinea pigs for experiments. And like when we did our population control episode, right, is like thinking of all the minorities and underrepresented communities that were being used.
They get sterilized just openly in the country.
Yes. And so all these times, like since the dawn of this country, BIPOC have been used as like these guinea pigs to try things out, like birth control, or finding out how syphilis and chlamydia affects the body, or like you can go on forever about the different things that happen, like cocaine. Like there's so much. Like it makes you sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it's literally just history.
Real. It's like what's happening.
And so like it is no surprise to me. Like when I was watching, I was like, of course.
Yeah, this is where
this is what they would do, right? Yeah. And they focus specifically, which is like a throwback to me to Candyman. They focus on a housing, lower income housing project to like be like, this is where all of it's gonna go down. And it's such like, it kind of seems like fictional when the way that they're approaching it, where they're like, this is where everything is going to go down, and like there's going to be violence, and of course it's going to happen here, right? And it's like it seems like kind of silly when you're watching it, but then you think about like if Donald Trump, because he's said it before, like he calls immigrants animals. He says that people from Mexico are not good guys. Like ridiculous things, right? That if he came on and was like, we're going to put it in this area, and of course we're going to see results because that place is full of violent criminals.
Well, like, yeah, it just kind of goes towards when we were talking about Candyman, the whole black on black crime, black on brown crime, where you're thinking that they're attacking each other. So it's the purge just makes sense is like their mentality. They're going in super racist. Yeah. And they're going in just like really trying to, I guess, prove the myth that Candyman represented. It's like if you give them the opportunity to do that, they're going to go crazy. They're going to do it. And that's not
Yeah.
Spoilers. That's not what happens.
Yeah. Well, and that's like at the beginning. So again, I hadn't seen it, and I was watching it with my boyfriend who had seen it, and I looked at him and I was like, why aren't they afraid? Like, I would be afraid that, like the history of this country, they're going to use this as an opportunity to just come in here and kill us and say that it was done to us. Like, that's literally how it works. And then, spoilers. That's what happens. Duh. And I was just like, I will say this. This film is, like, silly and it's, like, exciting. It's a thriller. But it is actually really terrifying. Like, when you're really, like, putting it on, like, I was like, this really feels real to me, and in a way that, like, I was honestly very afraid of it in ways that, like, I haven't been in a long time, because I was like, I see the things happening in this film happening every day now that I really can believe in this world. Like, before, like, when I just had the Purge,
2018 maybe, no.
Yeah.
Today?
Yeah.
Yes.
But the thing about it is, in 2018, people were aware of that. People knew that. That's why this film was made.
To the party.
And then, people are now waking up like, oh, wait, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, there's a good way it's described by a Hollywood Reporter. They basically say the prequel provides answers to the notion that people are inherently evil, or showing that they aren't, especially when they see themselves as part of a community. So the assumption of the self-invested 1%ers is that when given the purge, they're going to attack each other. They're going to kill each other. That's what's going to happen. But what they see is that the people are a community. So the people in Staten Island would rather party with each other than kill each other, take care of each other.
Yeah.
You know, bunk up in a church and, like, make sure everyone's safe, than go out and murder everybody that they care about for fun, for money and poops and giggles, because I can't say the other word. And that's just basically really powerful that you get to see that, and that, like, the government itself is the one placing the bricks in the street.
Yes.
Sending mercenaries who are the KKK.
COINTELPRO.
Yeah. Who are going down there in hoods, literally with machine guns, and are literally going, they're all white people. Just going to kill black people.
Or, there's, like, and there's a lot of imagery throughout this being represented by the masks that they're wearing. So, like, the fact that a lot of them were wearing KKK hoods, or there was, like, a lot of, like, German Nazi kind of outfits. So there's, like, the band on the arm, and and then there was, like, one where there was, like, a leather mask that brought to memory children under the stairs. Children under the stairs. Because the Big Daddy was, like, BDSM. Like, he wore the whole, like, gimp suit and was, like, this. He was terrifying, right?
Yeah.
And that also talked about in horror noir. And was one of, like, it was one of my favorite horror movies. I always thought it was so crazy. And so when I saw that, I was like, And then there's also, like, a scene in which our unwitting protagonist, like, that you would never imagine in a million years that this was your protagonist. It's so awesome. Actually, like, strangles a man who is wearing a mask that is essentially, like, blackface. Like one of the old, like puppet kind of looks, and, like, stereotypical cartoons of blackface of, like, this is what the black man is like. And so, like, for him to strangle the life out of this, like, that mask, right? Yeah. So there's so much imagery.
And then he takes it off.
Yeah, and it's like, no, your face. Because, like, we talked about this in Watchmen, right, is that masks make you cruel. And it hides you from the reality and allows you to kind of live out these fantasies where you're the vigilante. Like, these people thought they were doing the right thing. And money has all the power, right? It's like they knew that these people would stay because they need that money. Yeah. And that despite how...
I feel like they also felt like they would never have to pay it because they would all get killed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was like, there's no way they're going to pay for this. Like, I was like... You want to think that, like, you would be like, no, I wouldn't do that. But, like, but instead if you just look at, like, all the times when people go and do studies, like, they get paid for those studies, but they, like, lose stem cells or something. Like, you know, like, they're sacrificing their bodies because that's the only way to get that money. And, if you're really in need of it, you might sacrifice a lot more than you thought you would. Yeah. When you're put into that position. So I definitely believed that this could happen, and I was... Like, you know where it's going, and you know that's scary. But there's so many things. There's, like, the first crime was actually a guy who was going to blow up an ATM, which literally happened in the city. And like people were like, oh, why are they doing that? It's like, why not? Like,
yeah, like murder is not the first step in the list of crimes to commit. Like, capitalism exists. It has been exploiting people for centuries. I don't even know how long humans have been, but like, you know, for as long as money has been exploiting us. It's been a terrible time. Yeah. So like, it does not shock me at all that they would go for the ATM. If I was going to go out and commit crimes, that's the thing I would be doing. Yeah,
money, right? And like, that's the thing, too, about, like, people who complain about the way that people are protesting police brutality and white supremacy in this country is that people have a problem with, like, the fact that they blew up ATMs and that there's looting. And it's like, you don't understand that the existence of those ATMs and them being there and the fact that they do not have money and that they can't have access to these places are also a part of the problem. Like that isn't there. That's not a separate issue.
It's a part of the
those are one and the same. Like this is so ingrained in everything, right? It's institutional. It's a part of what America is. And so each one of those attacks, like, you might say, like, you're distracting from the real issues. Like, no, that is the real issue. These are all the issues. Like,
it's like that one young woman who had that really, like, great speech. And then it was followed up by another woman who had another really great speech that was basically just, you are the one, like, you've been looting black bodies for years. Like, don't yell at us.
Like, the Tulsa massacre.
And then, like, you taught us this violence. We did not, like, we're just existing, and you come in here and murder everybody, and it's, can't curse, man. You know?
It's
one, two, and it can't. Yeah. So.
It's messed up.
So it's just, like, kind of tying back to that, where it's like, this isn't, it's all a part of the same thing. We're protesting this. This is the problem.
And it's like, you're lucky we want equality and not vengeance, right? And that's the thing, too. And I think, like, so the first crime was actually going to be that ATM. And I was like, they're not going to report that, though. Because they don't see that as a crime. They wanted murder. They want to bring to light and to life the narrative and the urban legend of black on black crime. They believe that so powerfully that they think, of course, that Staten Island is going to kill each other because that they already do it, right? Like, that's the idea, right? And so we do have a character, Skeletor, right? And as soon as he showed up on screen and he's having this monologue about how he wants to murder.
We were definitely worried about how the film was going to go after that.
When I saw him, I was so upset because I was like, the problem with that is that we're getting this villain, like, in our face that we're supposed to hate. And I didn't. I was sad because I was like, what that, like, it sucks to see this man because all I could think of was like, that he needs help. He needs support. And he's in a world that he's cut off to that. He's being exploited and uses this tool to you know, keep on propagating this propaganda, right? And this idea. And so it just, like, infuriated me to see him on there and to see this, like, this cartoon character version of someone who's very clearly hurting and isn't even, like, you know, cared about in his own community. Because, like, what are they going to do? And so then he's used as a tool to kind of show, like, see, they're crazy. They're doing it. Instead of being like, he needs help. And again, that's, like, the whole idea of, like, do we need cops? We don't. So these things. But there's so much throughout this film that I was just like, it's so representative of what we're feeling now. And even though this was only in 2018, so not that long ago, it was during a time, like, just like we said for the 2019 film or series of Watchmen, people were saying it's too political, or that's the reason why it doesn't have as many views, and it really should. Like,
it needed the
people
views
need
back
to do
then.
this. Like, I don't understand. It is very good.
It was just saying it really boldly. It was really just kind of saying everything that needed to be said and ahead of its time. But I realize now that I didn't actually finish my quote of how great it kind of did this whole thing. But it said there, from the Hollywood Reporter, said that it was something powerful about the fact that the neon-tinged block party that breaks out before, like, that they're celebrating their community, essentially, instead of murdering each other. Right before all the agitators are sent out under the guises of the uniforms that people of color fear most. So you have, as you said, the arm cuffs, the police officer uniforms,
there's
the
people in
KKK, literally just like strolling about and just very obviously not from there.
Yeah. And it brings me back to like our conversation with Ariel when we were talking about Black women in horror representation and how she doesn't watch horror very often because real life is horrifying for Black people. And so like when you see things like that, when you keep seeing the same imagery and when you think like, again, about like Get Out with the police officer at the end and how that's not your hero. And like in this film, like you knew from the beginning, there's no illusion that this government is a good guy.
Oh,
that these people are going to take care of them. Like you knew it was insidious. You knew the whole time. And to have these protagonists that are people of color and to have all this imagery that is like really just in your face. Like there's again, we're in spoiler town, where there's a bunch of people who are seeking refuge in a church.
Yeah.
And they're, just hunkered down with their community. And when they send in these white supremacists and other horrifying villains, right, they end up shooting and murdering in this church. And it, brought back memories of the actual shooting in churches. Like, right. And you also, like you see all that imagery and you see them giving the contacts and saying, we're going to put a tracker in you and we have drones. So we have surveillance, right? Like there's so many things in here that feel like real life. And I think that's a part of it too. Like for certain audiences, horror has to be this like fictional thing. Like there's a lot of times where people are really afraid of like poltergeist or spirits and ghosts and things like that. And like we talked about in Lovecraft Country episode, for Black people, the real horrors are just like modern day things, like things outside in the real world. And those are way more terrifying than the spiritual things. And so like again, quoting horror noir, there's like this conversation where it was like people are so focused on like vampires and Frankenstein, right? But the real monsters are actually like, she says like the real, one of the women, I can't remember her name right now, she says the real vampire is you're married to him. He's like sucking the life out of you and he's abusing you and harming your child. And like there are these things that, and like the fact that this is a film that is classified as horror and it really is just like a representation of the real world. Like it isn't that far-fetched at all. Like, like if they decided, like if we, like not very far from having the founding fathers in our government, right? Like we have that all the time. We have, Donald Trump in there. There's like little snide hints to him where like she's being like attacked and she like yells and she says, stop. She's like, don't grab. I don't know if we're allowed to say that.
I think you're allowed to say it.
She says, don't grab my pussy, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a nod to Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah. And it's even in one of the article that...
Yeah.
The Hollywood Reporter one, it says that there is a curse. It says, pussy grabbing MFer is a clear allusion to Donald Trump, his infamous 2005 Access Hollywood tape. And you even said it when we were watching it, because he had like the gross baby face mask. And it was just like...
Yeah. And he was like...
You even called it... You're like, that's Donald Trump. Yeah. That's who he is.
There's like... Yeah. It's so... Like, it's not even... That's what's glory about this, right? It's not even pretending. But there's so many other things about this that I think are really amazing. And so, like, when we think back to something like Candyman, one of the things that people are like, this is revolutionary, is that we had a villain who was supernatural, who was a Black man, right? In this film, like... Jordan Peele's social horror films of Get Out and Us, it is predominantly BIPOC cast, right? And they are the protagonists. You have women who's speaking Spanish, and has like her like, and they talk about that. Like, think about how they talk about us. Like, they're not ignorant at all to the way that the world sees them, and to have like this. There's also this very honest kind of interaction with the drug lord, right? And I thought it was so refreshing because I was like, this isn't something you would get if it was written by a white man. Because if you think about Candyman, right, we have the way that the gangs were portrayed were very one-sided. Like they were just this like propped up like projection of what we see it. It's one-dimensional, that's it. And I was like, it's so phenomenal to see this multi-dimensional, like fully realized character in this man who is like, he's the drug dealer. Owns this, right? He is the gang leader, right? And there's this other side to him because he's like, this is all I know. And this is the only way I can ensure that I can protect my people. Mm-hmm. And like, he is working at the recreation center and he's coaching basketball, right? Yeah. And he's taking care of that. Meanwhile, like he is like carteling drugs in and out, right? But that's what he has to do. Like there's he's like, and even like the younger brother, and it says like, there is no other way. Like we've tried other ways. They don't exist. Like you can't go through the system. Yeah. It doesn't work. Like it's too hard.
And it's also not built to protect people who look like them.
Yeah. And so, like, we have this, one of the main characters is Ilan Noel from Insecure. And he is this protagonist. He's this hero. He's this, like, an action hero. I was like, he is amazing. Like Bruce Willis in Die Hard, right? Like, I was like, he's like
like unbeatable.
And he's like
he's doing it.
Getting attacked and he's losing everyone he loves and he's getting up and he's going and he's going to fight for his community. And he was like, I was like so pumped up because he's like, and again, he's this flawed individual, but you are rooting for him in the end. And he's also the love interest, right? Uh-huh. And I was like, halfway through, I was like, this is a dark-skinned man. Like, you know, we have colorism in our films, right? And we tend to kind of idolize lighter skinned people. He is not, right? Yeah. And it's like, I was like, and he's so handsome. And it was like, I was like, I'm so excited to see this. Like, I was like amped up. And I was telling Kat before this episode, I was like, after that, I was like, he's the lead, like one of the love interests in Insecure. I was like, I've always wanted to watch Insecure, but had never gotten around to it. And now I'm like, I'm re-energized. I'm like, I can watch it.
Yeah, of course.
Because that's awesome. And it was like, he's just like, all right, this is what we're going to do. And like his posse, like you felt for them. You really did.
Yeah. I mean, it just shows like everyone is people. Like we always like to super villain criminals and people who are different, like from who we see every day. Yeah. Like they literally try to like super villain gangs and honestly, lots of communities that have been BIPOC, specifically like Black Panthers, you know, and people who are just trying to protect their community.
Yeah, and also about the breakfast programs of the Black Panthers.
We're literally, like helping children and school, like trying to like help their communities and make sure that they're safe because this is a world where no one else will. Yeah. So it was, I agree with you, just like really beautiful to see like one, how multidimensional like they made his character, how real his character was, how like powerful his character was, and then also like really humanizing every single character. Like every character had moments. Yeah. You know what I mean? There was no one who was just like what was his name?
Skeletor.
Skeletor was a little bit of a blip of a character. But everyone else, for the most part, was like really like, they were all people and you felt for them. And they did a good job.
And I think like a part of Skeletor too is that like the community knew what he was, right? And there was like, everyone knew, like they were just like, we just need to stay away from him. Like you knew he was going to cause trouble because that's just like how he can express himself. Like he clearly needs help. And everyone just kind of was like, that's all we can do. Especially when you think about how stigmatized mental health help is in the Black community and how strong that is against like Black men specifically and how often they aren't like taken seriously or, you know, given the help that they deserve and are looked down upon for needing help, right? It's so neglected and it is a real issue. And so to see a character like Skeletor and to see how the community interact with him felt very real. And so like that's what it really, I was just like, this sucks so hard because like he's being taken advantage of and like there's nothing anyone can do, right? And I think a part of that is like the younger brother Isaiah realizing that he wasn't the enemy. Like he was like, he
got to that point,
but he was like, oh no, there's a bigger bad than this. And I thought that was really great and we just had so many different characters and they all had their own motivations and it was really great. And it makes me really sad that it doesn't get more attention and that it isn't uplifted as much.
I think it's intentional.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope that, like we have been saying, that people are, being a little more deliberate. There's more people out here who want to learn and want to see. And I think this is a great way to kind of see that. Because I think you can immediately realize the terror. Like, you're like, they're out there partying, they're having a block party. You're like, you would be out there. Like, yeah. And the government realizing it and watching these screens, like, why aren't they killing each other? And it's like,
they were mad.
Because it is a lie. Because you're being confronted with the truth, which is that doesn't exist. Like, those myths and urban legends that you've been putting on this group of people clearly is a lie. Yeah. And the things that you thought so hard were going to be proved aren't, and so that you have to twist the facts. And of course they're going to bring in COINTELPRO, because it's just like with the protests that are happening, right? We have peaceful protests, and it's not until like mysterious burning cars, bricks laid out on the street, tear gas, they're closing people off.
Yeah, they're making it so there's no way to escape. Like, there's no way to follow the law. Yes. So, like, what do you want people to do?
And then, like, you're attacking people, and like, again, you're protesting police brutality, and you're met with police brutality, and people are still defending the police. And it's like, that's how you know that this is real. Yeah. That this is, it almost feels like a documentary, honestly. Yeah. Like,
no, I mean, it was so viscerally upsetting, but like in a very necessary way. Yeah. Yeah. Where I literally looked up after watching it, I was like, we need to get weapons. Like, I just felt so strongly about that. That was just like, there's no safety in this system. Yeah. Unless we're upper class, rich white people. And that's not where I fall right now. Yeah. And where anyone I love falls. So none of us are safe. Yeah. And I'm not saying everyone go get guns, but like, at least something, defend yourself. Because like,
that's the thing.
They're going to come at us with things that we didn't even realize were possible. So they have all these weapons that they're using on people who are literally walking down the street.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's like what people need to realize is that no one else is going to save us, right? No one came to the aid that was outside of that community. Everyone was watching from their screen, being, like distanced from the issue. Like, it seems fictional even to people who lived in that world and were just watching, right? Because that's what we do. We distance ourselves from those problems. And that when it really comes down to it, the only people who are going to save you are each other and in your community. And so you really do have to like build up your community and stick by the others like you who are going to fight back, right? Because that's the only way. Like, we cannot be waiting for this white savior situation, right? Like, it's not going to happen. And it's inevitable that like there is going to be this uproar. Like, it really felt to me, I was like, this feels like it's going to happen tomorrow when I was watching it, because it is like happening right now. Like, all these different things are happening right now. And so I think like if you're going to get anything out of this film, it is to feel empowered enough that you can gain knowledge about the world and the truth, and use that knowledge to then protect yourself and protect your loved ones, and realize that we can be the heroes together. And that, like, I mean, at the end, it didn't end well, right? They still are in power, and the purge obviously still happens.
It still, like, decimated their community.
Yeah. 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 They were, like, annihilated.
Their entire, like, community that they built up had been taken out by drones, and just the white people who were the mercenaries.
Yeah. Thinking about like going floor to floor to floor, and versus like something here in Philadelphia, the move bombing, right? Like just, and it's your fault. You did it. There's two sides to the story. Like, no, you bombed people, your community. You killed 5 children, right? Like, there's no two sides to that.
Also shot like weapons into their building for a very long time.
Yeah, and then let it burn.
Yeah. They literally let it burn.
They said, let it burn. To make a point, right? So it's like and they still
hundreds
have
of
like
people homeless.
barely an apology 35 years later. Not even like a slap on the wrist kind of apology, right? And so it's like this stuff is so real, and it is happening every day, and we just need to be aware of it so that we can be like, we can't have it anymore where people say, like it's not the time, or I don't want politics in my media, or this is a liberal agenda. And it's like, it is. The liberal agenda is to educate you so you know what's really happening out there, and so that we can combat it. So we don't want to be like Candyman in the 90s and pretend that we're colorblind and that the issues are behind us. They're happening, they're real, and we need to fight.
Yeah. That was a very inspiring speech.
Oh, thanks.
Lead us.
Look at us do. Look at us.
I know.
Be educational. Yeah. And this is like our last episode in our podcast lair as it is, because we're moving. Because this area is full of rampant white supremacists and water racists who think that Columbus is more deserving of their attention than Black lives.
Yeah. They're walking around here with weapons, like guns and bats.
Yeah. And being intoxicated in public. It's so rude. The police are rude. Yeah. So, this is a great series. I don't know how much longer we have, like how much more content, because sadly it's kind of hard to find. Like, I think it would be fun to do a Tales from the Hood. But I think like there are, like, if you have suggestions, please let us know.
Yeah, please.
theGhoulsNextDoor@gmail.com. If there's something you want us to cover, whether that's a book, a video game, a film, TV show, what have you.
I've taken on reading.
Kat reads now.
Yeah. It's been a journey.
It's fun, yeah.
It's necessary. I can do it in small bursts. It's just like the narcolepsy really affects my focus. But once we get going, it's good. I got it. Send us some books to read.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're learning something from it. I hope this is media literacy for you, and that inspires. Like, it's $15. It's so absurd. Like, if you like,
I own it now. If any friends who want to watch it,
I wonder if we could like somehow stream it. If you know how to stream, and if we can somehow get a license to do that, I would love to stream this film once things are allowed to be out in the open. Because it's people say green phase. It's not green phase. We're in the second wave of coronavirus. Do not go outside without a mask. But once the world is a little more settled, maybe we could have something at like Amalgam Comics, Coffee House and Comics, to like have a screening where everyone watches the First Purge and we talk about it, because that would be amazing. And Shudder, I'm calling you. Like, I'm gonna call you and be like, you need to up this horror noir. I got the best film for you, man.
Yeah.
Put it on there. Let people, like, it's so cheap.
There's no I don't understand. Like, I guess I do understand, because I think it's intentional. I think it is on purpose been like pushed under the rug because it came out during that whole let Kaepernick lose his job time. Yeah. So it's
like if HBO, which is the HBO, can put out The Watchmen for a weekend during Juneteenth to be free for people to watch, and if Netflix, big old Netflix, can put 13th, the documentary 13th by Ava DuVernay on YouTube for free, regardless of if you have a subscription. If they can do that, then we can find a way to get this film on out there and available. Like, put it on YouTube. It's like illegal, I feel like, to not have this film out there and for it to be $15 and for us to have to search so hard for it. Like, I will lovingly pay that $15. I think they deserve it.
Because they deserve the money, but it should be available.
This is necessary watching. Like, as silly and hokey it is necessary watching, and I think it's rude that this and Get Out and Horror Noir and Us and Candyman and all these films aren't just like out there.
Yeah, they're making it harder.
It should just be like, here, along with all those books you're reading, watch them.
And I will say, it's like, I want people who made these films to get the money that they deserve. Yeah. And if that's the issue, then we need people to start paying them the money that they deserve so that we can put them in these areas so that they're more easily accessible.
Absolutely. And it kills me to use Amazon. Yeah. And that's what we had to do. And we did it. And you know how much I hate Jeff Bezos. Like, everyone who listens and watches us knows that. And that I would gladly watch him arrested.
Available option.
Yeah. And I did it. I allowed it. We watched it on that awful program, that awful streaming service for that awful company.
It's like awful quality-wise than awful actually, just because of
like my ethics, my morality. All of it was in jeopardy, but I did it because this film deserves that. So if that's not a testament, I don't know what is. Yeah. And if you need the hookup, Kat owns it now. We bought it together, so we can work it out, friends.
Yeah, we need you to see it because it's so real. And also, just go get your nunchucks or your giant wrenches.
Kat, nunchucks.
Giant wrenches or bats or seriously, not in the white supremacist defending statues kind of way.
Yeah.
Like, defend your houses.
Real.
Defend your families.
Things that are real.
Fight the system.
Yeah. All right, well, you know.
I said that so lackluster. Fight the system. You know.
It's just,
you gotta say it.
We're tired.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
don't get married though, your kids?
They'll eat your kids. Yeah, there you go.
I know what we're doing.
This is our podcast, The Ghouls Next Door. All right. Bye.
Bye.